Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Sadia, and this is my mother, Ima. Hey, Ima.
Hey, my love, I'm still working on that pose. I think this one's good.
I think you look fantastic. Um, have you ever dated anybody who was married?
Here's what happened. Some guy in college invited me out on a date
Yeah.
and he took me to a restaurant, and I noticed he didn't order anything for himself. And I said, "Hey, so aren't you gonna eat?" Cat, cat
The cat's.
again. I have to deal with you again.
It's okay. Just focus. Stay on task,
So
Ima.
okay. So he said no, he was okay. Didn't have any, didn't want to eat. Not, didn't want anything. And then um, a couple days later, I get a call from a woman who asked me. She said she found my phone number in her husband's wallet and wanted to know the nature of the relationship. And now that I'm older and wiser, what I could have done I should have lied and said, "Oh, we're working on a school project together," or something like that. This was in college, so I should have said, "Oh, we're working on a project together," But no, I was like 19 or 20 years old, and I was like shocked. I said, but such and such never told me he was married." And so I said to her, "Madam, I will not see your husband anymore." And she goes, "Thank you, please don't." And that was it. A day later, he calls, and I picked up the phone. I said, "Hi, spoke to your wife." And he says, "Oh, that really wasn't my wife. We were at this party." And I just hung up.
And you never spoke to him ever again.
No.
It's funny about like relationships, especially in your early 20s, because you know I think you still have that teenage angst and hormones, yet you think you're more of an adult, so you kind of make, I would think, bad decisions, but not as bad as it would be if it was a teenager, you know? And that's why it's like I know I worked, I studied in architecture, and I know in the music department, in the music industry, there's a lot of, I guess in the art industry in general, there's a lot more, I guess, passion and relationships and back and forth. Because I know there's a famous architect named Louis Kahn, and he had like multiple wives, and like Frank Lloyd Wright had like multiple like partners and whatnot, and it's that art thing that kind of happens.
I think what is because when you deal with the arts, you're dealing with passion. You're dealing with passion. You're dealing with feelings and emotions, especially like you're producing, especially when you're a music performer or you're taking music lessons and you're working on, say, putting feelings into the composition that you're working with, and you're trying to say you're getting more in touch with basically sensuality itself. It's part of the package deal.
Did you have any friends that got caught up in like relationships that they probably shouldn't have been, but because of like all the mumbo jumbo of like the arts that kind of like came with it, all the baggage?
um I don't know. Well,
Any friends? Any friends, you
yes,
know?
I had a friend who oh my gosh, he had multiple relationships, and until he caught gonorrhea. And when he told me he had gonorrhea, I cracked up laughing. He said, "It's not funny." I said, "You were jumping into jumping into bed with anything that had legs.
Oh
Like, come
gosh.
on, what were you expecting?" So what happened was I went to music history class that day, and we were all, the class had started. He came in late. And when he came in late into the room, everyone in the class cracked up laughing. And the music history professor said, "Okay, everybody, stop it already. Quiet down."
Quiet down, quiet down.
I guess word traveled fast in the music department.
It's funny because like when I guess because like in your 20s is when you should really be making a lot of mistakes and really be taking a lot of risks, and by the time you're 30, you kind of like settle down, which it brings me to the next point I was trying to make. When did you realize your parents were getting old?
I think it started when they hit their late 80s, and I was in my late 40s, early 50s, and my my father fell and broke his leg in the kitchen. He was making eggs, and the he was carrying a very heavy pot of water, of scalding water with the eggs, was taking it from the stove to the sink, and he fell down. I think his leg broke, and the hot boiling water splashed on his leg. He didn't tell anybody, and it was my niece who she came to my parents on a daily basis because she lived just down the street with your aunt, and she came and told us when she saw a couple of days later she saw my father's leg, that how badly it looked. It was very badly scalded. It was bleeding, and he wasn't walking properly. She was the one that alerted us, and then he told us what happened. And so they took him to the hospital, and it was after that they said they wanted to take him to, at that time, the Jewish Convalescent Center for rehab for his broken leg. And it was after that that we felt that it was, we were concerned because, first of all, my parents' house was a split level. And we were also worried about, we noticed him going up and down the steps. He was having a hard time going up and down the steps. And we were worried that it was just a matter of time before he would fall again. And who knows how badly that would turn out. So we, my older sister was the one who's basically being the oldest child, was makes it the executor. And so we all decided it would be best for my father to be in the nursing home at that point. And then my mother, there was this guy who was coming around, and she hired him to cut the bushes, and she would invite him into the house. And we didn't know it was a total stranger. And my aunt and uncle who lived next door got very concerned about the way she was keeping her doors unlocked, the way she kept inviting, like salespeople or strangers just to come in. As a matter of fact, my parents got robbed a couple times like that.
Oh, wow.
These men came in claiming they were from the water department. They needed to check the water. And could my father go downstairs and turn the water off and turn the water on? And in the meantime, I don't know, someone that my mother must have let into the house must have figured out where they kept their money. And someone went right upstairs to my father just come back from the bank. He put the money upstairs in their bedroom. This person knew where the money was, went upstairs, grabbed the money, and ran right out of the house.
Wow.
It was at that point we thought, we were worried because, thieves do talk, criminals do talk.
And they'll tell everybody this is the place to go to.
Yep, easy mark. So that's when we decided to put my mother in an assisted living at that point.
Yeah.
Because we were very, very worried that, who knows, we were worried that we could wake up one morning and have the police at our door saying, listen, God forbid your mother's been murdered or something,
Yeah.
That's what we were really worried about. Yeah.
On a different note, what was the moment you realized you were becoming your parents? Like various habits and whatnot.
Well, my father, I always had a love for history and for, I guess, what you would call more intellectual pursuits, bookwormish. And my mother used to tell me that she goes, you are, what'd she say? You were right, a chip off your father's block or something, because my father was like that. He enjoyed history. He enjoyed reading. And I've always enjoyed reading. I've always enjoyed history. And he also he played piano. I played piano. I think, I don't know, becoming like my mother was one of these people who was afraid. She was very much afraid to do anything. She was a homebody. My sister has a feeling she might have had agoraphobia,
Yeah, probably.
but she had a fear of water, terrible fear of water, could never learn to swim. And I was determined when I think it was I was in college, was when I noticed I was always very anxious about everything. And I was always afraid and anxious. And I decided, you know what? I said, I don't want to be like my mother. I don't want to be someone who just totally plays it safe, doesn't take chances, doesn't travel, doesn't do anything. And that's when I decided that I was going to actually get out and see the world and do things, no matter how frightened I was. Like my trip to Israel. My trip to Israel was basically, I took a very big chance. I was supposed, I went through that whole thing with you.
Yeah,
on one
we've
of our
talked about this on
podcasts.
multiple
Yeah.
occasions.
But-
But yeah,
But I was determined though that I was going to get out there and take chances and travel and do things and see things. And the thing is, I did it again with my trip to Barcelona. Just, I mean, I didn't go blind. I mean, your brother arranged my hotel hotel reservations and helped me to arrange my flight. But getting there, determining, okay, I'm here. How do I get to my hotel now? And you heard the story about that. With
yeah.
I found out later that there was a train there. The thing is, since I didn't know the territory,
Yeah.
I found out later the train was just 10 minutes. It was a 10-minute walk.
But you know what? With the
Yeah.
trains in Europe,
Mhm.
not all of them run on time, especially in Spain and especially in Italy. I was in Italy and
Mhm.
we were going to go on the train. We had a flight to catch and the train was just, people were on strike. They just were on
Yes.
strike.
When
That
I was in
happens.
Italy, the same thing happened.
Yeah.
The middle
Yeah.
of the day.
I was,
Uh-huh.
I was saying, I was all the way in Venice, and we had to catch a flight from Rome. I think they were leaving,
Oh no.
and the only way to do it at the time was we had to actually take a regular airplane. We had to fly from Venice because the trains, no one was around. It was on strike, and I had to. Luckily, I had traveler's checks like on hand, so I was just like writing off the traveler's checks and paying for my ticket. And I was able to afford it, and thank God everything worked out. But yeah, if anybody's traveling to Europe, some countries are on time. Like I think UK and Germany, of course, but like other places like Italy, maybe even Spain, like don't 100% trust the trains. So I have a question.
Barcelona is a little different.
Yeah.
Barcelona is a very big cosmopolitan tourist center.
Yeah, same thing with Italy and Venice.
All over the world.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Did you see yourself or Tati or maybe your grandparents in any of us kids growing up?
Your aunt, your older aunt.
Yeah.
Always felt that your brother, Yosef, was very, very much like my father.
Interesting.
She felt like she looked at him sometimes, like just the way he sat, the way he talked, certain things about his facial features. She felt that he was almost like a carbon copy. And then when your brother joined the Israeli Air Force, and
no, it wasn't the Air Force, Sima. Paratroop. Oh, it's whatever. It's a whole different story. Whatever, it is what it is.
Okay, but anyway, but he had to learn. He had to jump out of planes.
Yeah.
He had to learn to jump out of planes, and he liked it. He enjoyed jumping out of planes. And I mentioned that. I mean, me and my sisters are terrified of heights, and so I said to your aunt, I don't know where he gets it from. He says he loves jumping out of planes and parachuting. She goes, guess who else loved jumping out of planes and parachuting when he was in the Air Force? I said, Dad. She goes, yeah, and he loved it. He also joined he joined the Air Force during World War II when it was just starting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was called the Army Air Corps. It was a branch of the Army. It was not a separate how would you put it? Not unit, not, it wasn't a
No,
separate,
so the
branch of the Force.
The Air Force originally was part of the Army, and
Right,
only I think after World War II did it branch off into its own separate thing.
right.
Um,
Well, my father tells the story that when the war came to an end and they were all going to be discharged, that the uh, the armed forces really wanted the young men to perhaps stay and make a career of the military. He said, so who do they get to talk to them about it? They have this big assembly and they have this absolutely exquisitely beautiful young whack come there into the to the auditorium to talk to them about rejoining.
I actually spoke to Zadie. I remember asking him that question, and he said
Mhm.
that there was just such an influx, and they needed to they needed to shrink down the military that they weren't taking anybody in the end.
What?
I
That's
remember
interesting because
I remember
because
asking him. I
right.
remember asking him having this
Uh-huh.
conversation. Why didn't you make the
Hmm.
military your career? And he said
Hmm.
because no one was really trying to make it a career. Everyone just wanted to be done with it and move on. And that's what he told
Hmm.
me.
But
Uh,
that was true too. Yeah, that was true too. They did, the men, the people in the army did really want to move on and just go on with civilian life and get my. And I'll tell you, I've I we had one. There was one day when I was in junior high school where there was a girl who her father was something in the military, and they were just going to be in Baltimore for a couple of days, and her parents thought it would be a good idea if she came to our class, uh, to the local junior high school, which was right around where they were staying, and talked and spoke to our class about what it was like, being, they call it, an army brat.
yeah, an army brat.
And we were talking, she was telling us what it was like and everything, we were asking her questions, and it's really, it's very, very difficult. She goes, it's hard to make friends because you're moving around a lot. She goes, they're very seldomly in one place for anywhere to from 1 to 2 years. And she told us a very interesting story about, they were, one time her father was stationed in this very remote village in Honduras where they were building some sort of bridge. And the people, this was like this little off the beaten track town in Honduras. And for some reason, a rumor got started that they where they were building the bridge was going to release these demonic forces, and all these people in the village actually started rioting.
Oh wow.
They wanted to attack the people. They wanted to attack the army base. And she said they were in their house, and of course, of course, the army people were there with, of course, their guns and everything. But she said it was very scary.
So I have another question. Where would you want to visit, but you're scared to visit?
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Um, I'm just scared to visit. That's a good question. That little remote island off of India where they have that tribe that kills
Oh
people.
yeah, the tribe that's never seen any modern human contact.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a what's it called? There was a missionary that tried to get to there,
Yes.
and they killed him.
They killed them.
They killed
Yeah.
him. Yeah.
But with I don't know if I'd want to go there. I'm trying to think where would I want to go. Probably one of those volcanic islands in the Philippines. Or Antarctica. Antarctica would be
Oh
interesting.
yes, yes. We looked into it a little bit. I think it would cost like maybe like $3,000 for the whole trip.
That no, I think it was 30,000.
Was it 30,000 or 3,000? I
I'm
remember we
almost
just
sure it
talked
was.
about this.
I'm almost sure it was 30. It was 30,000.
Something like that. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was either super cheap or really expensive. Either way, it's not
Yeah.
going to happen. I want to check out Alaska, to be honest. I really want to visit Alaska, maybe in like the springtime where it's like the snow is
Mhm.
slowly melting. So it's not like the summer where like you don't see sunset till 9 o'clock at night.
Well,
But
what I want to do, what I would like to do, is I've spoken to a lot of people who've gone on. There's this kosher cruise
yeah,
that goes there, and usually it's like the first or second week in August. I've
okay.
spoken to numerous people. Aunt Judy was on it.
Okay.
She went there, and everyone says it was wonderful. I think Ann didn't go on the cruise. She and her husband just winged it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They did their own research, and they just went themselves. And they were able to join some guided tours there. But this kosher cruise, I've heard nothing but good things about it.
Yeah, I've seen it advertised a couple places, a couple times.
Mhm.
But I'm trying to think, because we talk about a lot of stuff on this podcast. We've discussed a lot of things. We've been doing this for the past like over 2 years now, you know, and like we've learned a lot about each other, about different things. And there's always more to scratch on the from the surface. You're always going to find something else.
Mhm.
Um, but what has this podcast like impacted you so far? In like asking yourself things, questioning yourself things, like how has it affected you? I'm just curious.
The cat just meowed when you asked that.
Yes, exactly. It's a she, right?
Yes,
So she responded.
it's a she. It's a she.
Yes.
Hmm. I don't know what to say.
It's okay. No worries. No worries. You always have
I
wonderful
do not
stories to
know what
say.
to say, man. Except that I think it's really caused me to really dig into the recesses of my memories, and it's brought about a lot of memories from that. I tell you that I uh, that I that I thought I'd forgotten about or couldn't remember. It's really helped me to dig into the past and really dig around a lot of things that I had totally forgotten about.
So I guess it's just like I'm curious to know because in your generation, the boomer generation, I think there's a part of this world that's just once the boomer generation moves on, I don't think we're ever going to repeat. I think your generation had this point where they came into the richest time in America with the richest opportunities.
Hmm.
And millennials and Gen X, they had like struggles. And it's just that I just think it's funny when it comes to boomers. I think there's a blind spot. Do you feel like you have a blind spot with today's generation?
I'm sorry. What do you mean by blind spot? I don't quite
Well,
understand.
a blind spot is a part of you where you feel like you're out of the loop.
In certain respects, yeah, because like I tell you the truth, I look when I go through these circulars to go shopping, I see all this, these good deals and all this like nasherai that years ago when you kids were little would have bought for you, and and now it's an empty nest. So all like a, I'm not about to buy this big stack of granola bars that's full of sugar. Yeah. And I just basically shop for myself, and my shopping list, since shop for myself is getting like it's pretty small. Um, I see I see people in you younger generation, younger kids, younger you little you youngins, um, getting excited and overworked about the stussy stuff
like
that now that I'm older, it's just it's such stuss. It's
like what? What do you mean? It's very vague.
movies like some of these movies that people go crazy over.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh come on, millions of dollars spent on something that's not real. It's a
Well, it's
fantasy.
what's funny is that like I just saw Avatar 2. It's supposed to be, I think it's like made over $1 billion. Did not care for it. Thought it was the
Mhm.
boringest movie ever. Boringest movie ever. Um, what's something you learned embarrassingly late in life?
Embarrassingly late in life. I bet so, talking too much. I look back at some of my behavior and I said, I think to myself, I should have just kept my mouth shut and not said anything. It would have been better. Whereas there was this one incident that happened when I was teaching Hebrew school,
Yeah.
where since I was teaching in a Reformed temple, and so they had this big conference with all the rabbis of the different Reformed temples, and each of them, we went to different rooms where each of these so-called rabbis were giving their spiels, their Reformed spiels. And one of the deformed rabbits was a guy who had a reputation for being not just the reform, but almost like atheistic,
Yeah.
almost virulently anti-religious, you might say. And he and I immediately butted heads. Oh boy, did we ever get into a nice little.
Like what? What did you guys butt heads for?
Okay, first he talks about the ignorant Hasidim and how we have to get away from all these meaningless rituals and things like that type of thing.
Okay.
And so I said, wait a minute. I said, wait a minute. I said, you talk about ignorance. I said, are you talking about the Lubavitcher Rebbe who has a master's degree in nautical engineering from Sorbonne? Perhaps you're talking about the Satmar Hasidim that have the entire diamond district in their side pockets and are making millions of dollars. Oh, maybe you're talking about Dr. Norman Berg, who developed the anti-missile system, who's also a Lubavitcher Chassid. Or maybe you're talking about Professor Branover, who was a pioneer in the development of hydroponics. And so he looks at me and he says, very like, how can I say, very ego, like you could just see his ego was
Pompous. It's very pompous.
Yeah, and he gives me his pompous and says, you will never teach at my school.
Yeah, I don't plan on it.
I smiled at him and said, well, the feelings, and I brought my voice down very, almost to a whisper, and I made my voice like sound very warm. And I said to him, well, the feeling's quite mutual. I wouldn't want to teach at your school.
Yeah, I don't know. I get so frustrated when I look at some stuff where it's just like, and I said this on like the first episode of our podcast where I hate just bagels and lox Judaism. Like it's such a like just a dumbed down version of what Jews really are. And it's like people are obsessed with it. It's like there's a movie that came out on Hallmark this year called Hanukkah on Rye. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's such a Jewish, movie. It's so crazy that it's just so naturally Jewish. It's not such a Jewish Jew thing doing Jew stuff and Jew things and stuff. And I'm like, I watch the movie because I pay attention. I'll give it a shot. And like, it's what I appreciated about it was that they didn't do the self-explanatory thing where it's like you can tell it's a fish out of water, where it's just like they replace Christmas with Hanukkah, or they're doing things that like make zero sense, or they have a Hanukkah bush. Like this place, they actually like have pretty decent stuff, but like some menorahs weren't kosher. Some things they were saying didn't make any sense, and other stuff was like, we're having, a bagels and lox off where everyone makes their own bagels and lox, and it's just like we're more than that as a people. We have the Torah and mitzvos first off, and that's really the only thing that makes us Jewish. But that thing that makes us Jewish that seems so simple is extremely complex and detailed. So it's just like I get kind of frustrated when I see that, and I know what you mean, where it's just like there's no point of saying anything or talking about anything because it's just like you're not going to convince them. They don't care. And what's worse, if you attack them, then they get to play victim, and then it makes you the loser and like them the winner. and the cat's walking by.
Excuse me, Anna. How do I move the phone? Oh,
Just move the phone, move the cat, move the cat.
she likes to show her tush to the phone for some reason. But but I thought back, like I said, like I realized, I should have just sat there and not said anything, let the guy talk, because there were a lot of people, like I could tell people were not buying his spiel. People
Yeah.
were, especially the Israelis, were just sitting there like, ho let him talk.
Yeah.
And when he finished, like, any questions?
No.
Silence. That would have been the best way to handle it. But
Yeah. Like that, then that's why, like, I don't go on social media and write all these whole long diatribe paragraphs I see everyone else doing and complaining about and being like, oh, it's the end of the world, blah, blah, blah. Look, Torah MS Moshe MS Visaraso MS. Like, it doesn't matter what you say or do, the truth will set you free, the truth will come out. So it doesn't really bother me that much that people are doing this Narishkeit thing. I just don't like the bagels and lox things because it just cheapens our culture and our people. So it's kind of stupid and silly. But we're coming close to end of time. But what is something you really want, but no, you will never have?
Oh gosh. What I want, but will never have, $1 billion.
Really? Money? That's it? Can't
there's a lot of problems that can be, well, there's a saying, any problem that can be solved with money is not really a problem. But there's a lot of good that can be done with
what would
with
you
money.
do with $1 billion? What would you do with it?
Well, first of all, I would pay the tuitions of all my grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
So my children would not have to worry about it. That'd be number one, taking care of everyone's tuitions.
After you paid for everybody's everything,
tuition,
what would it be? Like that's the thing. It's like, if you had $1 million, what would you do? Not $1 million anymore, but like $1 billion.
It's got to be $1 billion.
It's got to be $1 billion nowadays. But like what would you do? And the thing is like, you look at yourself and be like, well, I would paint, I would do this, I would do that. I would still do architecture, to be honest. I just would do it in a better.
First of all, I'd keep it real quiet.
Oh yeah, of course. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. There would be signs, but not.
But I would try to help out, like for instance, I think I would build build a Chabad house.
Where?
Name it after your father, in like some place on the West Coast where there's Jews but very little opportunity for real Yiddishkeit.
Probably Oregon. Nice. It was West Coast. It's nice. They got mountains.
Yeah.
I was almost going to move to Washington State at some point.
Really? What happened?
What do you think happened, Dima? What do you think happened? Think about it. So fine. So moving on then, what would be the best decision you have ever made in your life?
To get married and have a big family.
Yeah.
Everyone will get becoming from. I'm sorry I didn't become from, like, when I was much younger. Would have kept me out of a lot of trouble.
Like what trouble? Please, let's elaborate. We'll talk about this more, but what has Frumkeit helped you? How has Frumkeit helped you?
It's been a great guide. It's been a terrific guide, and it's helped me to basically appreciate my life and to realize that my life as a Jew gives me a greater meaning. Whereas before I became Frum, I was like kind of on the depressed side, wondering, why am I here? What good am I doing?
Oh, the Stoicism, I think, or something like that.
Why do that? I'm sorry, what?
The Stoicism, I think it's called.
The atheistic thing, like,
the atheistic Stoicism. Oh, there's no point in this world. Nothing matters. But I'm gonna wake up in the morning, like whatever.
Right. And the only thing that matters is if you can make a big, success of yourself. I was driven to, as I was, I wanted to make a name for myself in the music world, and I was going to all these auditions and everything, and nothing was panning out. And the thing is, if material success is your barometer as a human being, you know what? You're going to be real disappointed. I can understand people committing suicide, because let's face it, how many of us realistically are going to be great historical figures. Very few of us. Okay. So then the question is, well, then why am I here? Maybe I'm just taking up time and space. I mean, what am I good for? What use is my life? But then, as when I became a Frum Jew, I realized, hey, that we're here to when you study Chassidus and you read,
Yeah.
as it says in Tanya, that we're here to elevate the physical to the spiritual and to bring down godly forces to this earth. So that, when you think about where should the Jewish people be, we should be in Israel with the base of Mikdash and Mashiach. This is like our destiny.
It's like a mission statement that you can focus on.
Yes.
It's just like, I remember reading something online where it was, you watch these movies, right, about going back to the past, and you have to help some random stranger cross the street, because if not, the butterfly effect means that the whole world's going to end. And it's so funny where people feel like they need to go back in time, where they're so insignificant. But if you really think about it on that level, each of us doing our mundane things, keeping ourselves alive and moving forward, is what really, keeps everything together. Like, we are special, unique, rare, different people that all of us together will make this whole thing right. And it's just that people get lost in the ether, where it's just like they lose their sense of meaning. But you have to read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning is a very important book that I think everybody should read. And that's what really gets people going to understand what they need to do to survive, I
remember when I was doing my student teaching during my atheistic days, and my supervising teacher said, everyone has the right to be here. You have the right to be here. Everyone has the right to be here. And I thought to myself, and I at the time I thought to myself, yeah, really, for what purpose? But then when I became Frum, realized, hey, there is a purpose, that God wants you here, because okay, you might be a little screw in the mechanism, but you know what? That little screw in the mechanism is necessary, because if it falls out, the whole machine's going to come crashing down.
Yeah. It's like I remember looking at this comic, and you see it's these two little dots talking to each other, and one dot says to the other that, like, I'm just one dot out of all these million dots. Doesn't really matter. Nothing is pointless. That's it. I can't do this anymore. I'm just going to kill myself. And the other dot saying, no, please don't kill yourself. And then the dot says, I'm going to do it. And then he kills himself. And then a dot goes blank. And then you see somebody, and it's zoomed out. It's actually a TV. And the guy's looking like, he's like, is that a dead pixel? Darn. Now the whole. So like you think you have no meaning. You think you have no purpose because you're too self-absorbed. But once you start like seeing a wider, bigger picture, you really start seeing the reasoning of why you wake up in the morning. I think people, but the biggest problem is people get too self-absorbed. Once you're atheism on some level is self-absorption.
Yes, it's egotism. Yes,
it's but again, that, like, if some idiot comes in and sends me a stupid fucking message of like, oh, no, well, I'm an atheist and I do good things. Like, yes, out of spite from other people that are religious, or because you want to, or it gives you a sense of purpose because helping people is a good thing to do. Like, whatever you want, man. I'm not here to convince you that God exists. That's your problem, not mine. That's just how I feel.
So true.
But
so true. You were talking about like regretting like actions as an adult.
Yes.
There was a young Frum woman. In fact, she was married with kids.
You got 1 minute left.
What?
1 minute left.
Anyway, she became an atheist, and I was trying to talk to her, and I think back to the conversation, I made the big mistake of lecturing and preaching.
Ugh, no
big
one likes
mistake.
It.
I should have spoken to her. I should have listened to her, and I should have tried to see where she was coming from.
Yep.
That would have been the best thing to do.
Yep. That's really how it works. But it's too late now. Alrighty. I love you, Emma. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
Love you too. All
right. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.